In this session, we're going to look at some practical aspects of a leader's personal life. Now, let's begin by looking at time management. You know, a good leader must learn to manage time efficiently. Now, obviously, everyone is given the same amount of time in a day, but some people seem to get more done than others. And usually the people who get the most done have the most to do. You know, in his book, The Tyranny of the Urgent, Charles Hummel wrote, "The issue is not so much a shortage of time as a problem of priorities." Also in that book, the statement is made, "Your greatest danger is letting the urgent things crowd out the important things." Now, in the Bible, probably the best illustration of this is the issues that surrounded the lives of Mary and Martha in the New Testament. In Luke 10:38 through 42, you know the story. Martha was caught up in the urgent, get the food, get everything done. But Mary saw what was really important. Yes, there were urgent things all around Mary, but not everything that was urgent was important to her, and not everything that was important was urgent. As leaders, we must be able to prioritize the important things that we need to do. You know, things needing our attention can be divided into two overall categories with four subcategories within those two. There are important things, and there are important things that are urgent, crises, pressing problems, things with deadlines. But there are important things that are not so urgent, such as prayer and contemplation, planning and dreaming, sermon teaching preparation, relationship building, empowering others, recreation. Those are not so urgent, but they're extremely important, and we need to prioritize those because those are the things that will develop us spiritually as well as mentally and physically, but also will help us to develop others around us as we pour into their lives. And then, of course, there are some things that are not important, and some of those are urgent, interruptions, phone calls, some of them anyway, some meetings, many popular activities. They're really not that important. We need to really keep those on a low priority basis. And then, of course, there are some not important that are not urgent, just busy work, some phone calls, excessive TV, time wasters. We have to be very careful about these, especially those about busy work. We like to appear busy all the time so that we look important. We need to be careful. Those may not be all of that necessary. So we have to look at categorizing things that demand our attention kind of based upon these categories. Now, Jesus is a great example of avoiding the tyranny of the urgent. Jesus was constantly having to still away from the urgency of the multitudes so that he could pray and meditate and so that he could speak into the lives of his disciples. Now, Jesus could have spent all of his time with the needs of the multitudes, but he knew that not everything urgent was important. John Maxwell speaks of time management by the use of what he calls the Pareto principle, or the 20-80 or the 80-20 rule or principle. Now, basically, this principle says that in almost anything that can be measured, time, talent, resources, 20% is vital, important, or responsible for the results, and 80% is trivial, not important, or not responsible for the results. Here's some examples of that. In almost any organizational entity, especially in a volunteer organization like a church, 20% of the people are responsible for 80% of the work of the church. 80% of the income of most churches come from 20% of the people. So focusing on the 20% of our priorities that are important will produce 80% of the results that we are looking for. Now, Jesus used this principle in developing his disciples. Hundreds of people followed Jesus, but with whom did he spend most of his time? Well, you know the answer, the 12. Pouring into that 20%, 80% of his attention, because from that 20% would come the dynamic to turn the world upside down. The basic teaching of the Pareto principle is to focus on the 20% that really matters. But how do we determine what really matters? How do we resist the tyranny of the urgent? Well, we need to ask ourselves these questions. What is required of me? What gives me the greatest return? What gives me the greatest joy? And how do we maintain our priorities? Well, evaluate. Where am I? What am I doing that can be done by someone else? What is needed to accomplish my objective? And as Spirit-filled believers, we need to seek the Spirit's help in giving us discernment into what is truly important. As leaders, many things demand our attention, but we need to focus on what really, really matters. Now we're going to turn to the leader's task. Now, most people fall into one or of two categories in regard to leadership focus, either task-oriented or people-oriented. Now, I have provided by a link on the homepage of this course a little survey to help determine where you fall in regard to task versus people orientation. I encourage you to use that resource. Now, some people are more task-oriented, and some people are more people-oriented. But let me stress, there is no right or wrong orientation or good or bad orientation. The purpose of the survey I provided is to demonstrate where you and I fall in this regard and how we can use our orientation for the best advantage and how we can subsidize or modify our orientation when necessary. So let me encourage you to take the survey and use the results to help you as you consider your leadership function and potential. But balance is really the goal. Now, in reality, leadership has to focus on both task and people. However, remember what I said earlier, that we lead people and we manage things or tasks. Now, let's look at the differences between what a leader does and what a manager does. A manager takes care of where you are. A leader takes you to a new place. A manager deals with complexity. A leader deals with uncertainty. A manager is concerned with finding the facts. A leader makes decisions based on those facts. A manager is concerned with doing things right. A leader is concerned with doing the right things. A manager's critical concern is efficiency. A leader's focus is on effectiveness. A manager creates policies. A leader establishes principles. A manager sees and hears what is going on. A leader hears where there is no sound and sees where there is no light. A manager finds answers and solutions. A leader formulates the questions and identifies the problems. A manager looks for similarities between current and previous problems. A leader looks for differences. A manager thinks that a successful solution to a management problem can perhaps be used again a leader wonders whether the problem in a new environment might require a different solution. And as you can see, these are based upon a website that you can look up if you'd like to do that. Now, the manager administers, the leader innovates. The manager maintains, the leader develops. The manager accepts reality, the leader investigates it. The manager focuses on systems and structures. The leader focuses on people. The manager relies on control. The leader inspires trust. The manager has a short-range view. The leader has a long-range perspective. The manager asks how and when. The leader asks what and why. The manager has his or her eye always on the bottom line. The leader has his or her eye on the horizon. The manager imitates. The leader originates. The manager accepts the status quo. The leader challenges the status quo. The manager is the classic good soldier. The leader is his or her own person. Now, most of the above is adapted from Warren Bennis, and if you'd like to read some of his works, that would be a good project for you. You know, one illustration of the difference between being a manager and a leader is one in which a group of people are hacking their way through a dense jungle. Now, the manager is the one who supplies the members of the group with machetes and also keeps the blade sharp so that they can continue to hack away. The leader, on the other hand, is the person who has climbed the tallest tree in the jungle and says, guess what, guys? We are working in the wrong area. We're in the wrong place. We need to be over there working. You see, the bottom line is, however effective the local church becomes requires both managers and leaders. And if you're seriously lacking in one of these two areas, it would probably behoove you to bring alongside of you someone with skills in the area that you are lacking in. Now, as a pastor, as a church leader, your skill set really needs to be on the side of leadership. And some type of managerial person is who you need on your team. Another part of the task that leadership must keep in focus deals with values, mission, and vision. Now, there's a lot of confusion concerning these three terms. If you do much reading in the areas of values, mission, and vision, you will find that these terms are often used interchangeably, especially mission and vision. I finally just had to assess all that I had read and then develop my own standard definition so that I wouldn't become confused anymore. So, in this series that we're doing, let me define these terms, and these are the definitions that we will use for the series. Now, if you don't like my definitions, that's okay. Change them. But in our discussion, this is how we will define these terms. Let's talk about values. Now, values are the aspects of one's life and character that are non-negotiable. These are the issues of life that one is basically willing to die for, or if they were compromised, would result in a person no longer being who they were before. These are known as core values. And most people have a limited number of values that fall into this category. Core values in a person's life are generally less than 10 in number. And determining these values is crucial to determining one's mission in life. What one values is what one deems important to pursue. Now, Jesus values lost people, which relates directly to his mission, seeking and saving that which is lost. And so mission is the overarching or all-encompassing focus of a person's life. A person's mission will take a lifetime to complete. Now, although progressive revelation from God may clarify and realign one's understanding of mission, generally a statement of mission changes very little over one's lifetime. Therefore, a statement of mission is stated in very broad and general categories, and I give the example here. The mission of Jesus is to seek and to save that which is lost to God. And then vision. Vision involves the incremental steps one must pursue in order to accomplish one's mission in life. Now, because life circumstances can change, statements of vision must remain flexible enough to change with these circumstances, yet remain true to the mission and the values of a person. A vision statement can be understood as a plan of action toward accomplishing specific goals in life. And here's the example that I use. Jesus' mission is to seek and save that which is lost, but the incremental steps in accomplishing this mission are his incarnation, his life, his teachings, his work, his death, his church, and so on. So these become part of the vision statement of Christ concerning his mission. Now, part of being a good leader is to know your own personal values, mission, and vision. You see, if you don't have a good handle on who you really are and where you feel God is calling you, and at least an idea of the path you ought to be walking on to accomplish that call, it's going to be very hard for others to follow you, and it's going to be very hard for you to communicate your calling and vision to others. So I have provided another link to on the homepage to an instrument to help you discover and state your personal values, mission, and vision. And as a help, I'm also going to give you my own personal value, missions, and vision statements in a separate link. Now, I hope you will use these tools to help you clearly define who you are as a leader and be able to communicate that clearly to those who follow your leadership.